I'm telling this story mostly for awareness, but also because I feel like I've hit a roadblock. I don't really know what to do anymore, so I'm kind of turning to the public for advice. If you've never seen me before, my name is Maya, and this is a very strange video to get to know me by because this is not my usual content. Usually my content is pretty short, pretty funny, light, easy stories, but this is genuinely the most insane, ridiculous thing that has ever happened to me, and it requires a separate long video, so I'm gonna just skip all the intro stuff. Let's just get straight into it. So I live in Toronto, Canada, and I was looking for a new unit to live in. Majority of my search was being done on Facebook Marketplace because that's where I had found my last unit. Could have been using a more reliable website like realtor.ca or one of those more legitimate ones, but I have been in almost a 6-year battle with my ex-bank because they messed up my credit score and haven't fixed it. I have been trying to deal with that, but with a lot of places like Realtor, they want to see you have an amazing credit score, and because mine is down in the dumps, I get rejected from a lot of applications. A lot of places on Facebook don't really check for those type of things, so Facebook was my only hope. I was pretty confident in finding a new place because my previous roomie had wrote me a glowing review talking about how I never paid my rent late and that we had a good relationship throughout my entire tenancy. After a couple weeks of searching, I came across this one posting on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm gonna call this user S for now. This listing was in a Facebook group called Toronto Home Zone, which I thought was extremely reliable because one of my friends told me about it, and you actually had to get your identity verified before you could join the group. So I checked out S's listing. It was in a good location. The unit looked really, really nice, and I decided to reach out to her so I could get a tour of the actual unit. She responded to me a couple hours later, and we agreed to meet the next day. So to keep track of the timelines, this unit tour happened on January 18th. It's the early afternoon. I come to the building. She greets me in the lobby, and then she brings me up to the unit. It's a newer building that was really nice, and the unit itself was really nice too. The unit was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, with one of the bedrooms being the master bedroom, so the bathroom was attached. She told me that she bought the unit a year ago. She had been living there by herself and using the extra bedroom as a guest bedroom for when her family and friends visit. She wanted to move closer downtown, so her plan was to rent out the secondary bedroom as she keeps moving out her stuff from the master bedroom, and then once she's fully moved out of that room, she would sublet the master bedroom. And we had a really good long conversation. She was telling me all the things that she loves about this building. I was telling her how I work in social media. She told me that she had managed some Airbnbs in the past, and she was really looking for a tenant that would take really good care of the space because this space looked really brand new. You could tell that she had put a lot of work into it. There was some plants in there, and obviously if you're someone who owns Airbnbs, you care a lot about the people who are in your space and making sure that they're going to treat it with care. So we were talking for about an hour. She showed me all the amenities in the building. So after that, I went home. She sent me a rental application and said fill it out if I want to, and of course if I have any questions to let her know. At the time, I was kind of unsure if I wanted to go forward with it, so I asked her 2 questions. I asked her how soon she would be leasing out the secondary bedroom so I could get an idea of the type of person who would be living there, because obviously I want to live with someone who has a similar lifestyle as me or someone that I can just really get along with. I also told her that I tend to be a night owl. I tend to film my videos late at night, and I don't want to disrupt someone who maybe has a schedule that requires them to have to wake up super early in the morning. And the second thing I asked her was if she would be willing to lease out the master bedroom to me instead, just because it was bigger and the bathroom was attached and I felt like that would be better for me. She responds and thanks me for the thoughtful questions because we talked about how much communication is important to us, so we're both on the same page. She told me she was open to me taking over the master bedroom and she would just move the stuff that she has in there now into the secondary bedroom, and then once she fully moves out, she could lease out the secondary bedroom. She also told me that the secondary roomie wouldn't be confirmed yet, which wasn't much of a surprise to me because she told me she was still showing the unit to a couple other people. Also asked me if it would be okay to set quiet hours to make sure that I wouldn't be disrupting someone else if they needed to be sleeping. So I respond the next day, January 19th, hella early in the morning. You can pause to read, but I basically acknowledge the fact that I'm more active at night. And I thought the two rooms being beside each other would cause an issue because I don't want to disrupt whoever is sleeping in the next room. And I told her it would make the most sense for me to pass on the unit. I thanked her for her patience and wished her luck on her search. She responded a couple hours later, thanking me for letting her know and wished me good luck as well. 2 hours later, she messaged me this, saying it's okay if I'm no longer interested, but we can address the noise thing by installing sound absorbing devices and other solutions. She also said her main thing is that the roomies communicate, are respectful, and are tidy. She said she isn't promising anything, but she encourages my application because I seem like a genuine person who would take care of the space. So I responded and I said I would take some time to think about it. And she said, take my time because she has some other showings lined up over the next few days. Now, it's important to note that I was extremely motivated to find a new place because obviously there was some urgency. I couldn't stay at my old place, so I really needed to find something before my time was cut off. Next morning, I told her that I would submit the application, but I also wanted to come back to the unit again just to take another tour and make sure that this was the space that I wanted. So now it's a couple days later, it's January 22nd. I go back to the unit to take another tour again. We chatted again about each other's lifestyles. I took another look at the master bedroom because now that was the one that I was applying to use. Go home, submit the application. And then she messaged me asking if it was okay that she pulls my credit report. Obviously, I was very nervous about this given the situation that I briefly explained at the beginning of the video. And honestly, I'm just gonna name drop them. BMO, if you're watching this, you guys are the worst. You are just evil people who offer no help whatsoever, and you have actually ruined my life. So if you're watching this and you don't have BMO, don't ever get BMO. And if you're with BMO, run. So I gave her permission to pull it, but I did give her a heads up and explain the situation, why the credit score is low. And on my credit report, you can see that I've never had any late payments or anything major. You could just see that one instance where the bank messed it up and they just haven't been able to fix it. She thanked me for the transparency and I thanked her for the patience because there's a lot of really strict landlords out here. And I was really glad that she was looking at me not like an application, but as a human being. On January 23rd, she accepted my location, which I was overjoyed about because I had applied to maybe 3 or 4 places beforehand and all of them got rejected. She told me she was going to take the next few days to draft up an agreement for us and that she would send it electronically to me so I would have some time to review it. And then after, we would schedule a time to meet in person so we could both sign it. On the days leading up, she suggested that I get renter's insurance to protect my stuff, and she actually helped me with that process, which was great. Actually offered to split the renter's insurance with me until another tenant moved in, which was really nice of her. The move-in date was February 1st. So on January 31st, we agreed to meet up to sign the agreements. So we met up on the 31st, we went over the agreements, and I sent her my deposits for my first and last month's rent, my parking, key deposits, and all the standard stuff you usually send deposits for when you move into a new place. Officially, everything was signed and good to move forward, so she gave me a key to the unit. Also gave me a Starbucks gift card to congratulate the move, which was really nice of her to do. Now it's move-in day, February 1st, 2025. She let me know that she was going to be at the unit making some suite upgrades, but she would also be there to help me move stuff if I needed. So around 12 o'clock noon was when I started moving stuff from my old place to my new place. Luckily, all I really needed to move was clothes because the unit already had a bed and the major furniture items that I would need. I'm a very independent person, so I was moving everything by myself. But I also told her that I was going to be moving my stuff throughout the week. I wasn't going to do everything in one day because that would be a lot. I want to say I moved around 75% of my stuff by around 7 o'clock. By that time, she wasn't there anymore and I had plans in the evening, so I went out, got back really late. She also told me she was barely going to be in the unit that month because she was focused on doing stuff in her new unit and working, but she would drop by occasionally, may stay a night just to get her old stuff in order. And obviously I was happy about that because for the first month at least, I would be living in a 2-bedroom unit by myself. Throughout the first week, we didn't communicate much because I was really busy between going to work and having events, but a couple days in, she did check in and ask how everything was going. I did tell her that there was a small issue with one of the blinds in my room because, I'm not gonna lie, they were very cheap blinds. They were being held on by sticky adhesives and one of them had come loose. Obviously, that's not a big deal, but I wanted to show her my commitment to communicating if something was to go wrong. She said she'd be stopping by the unit sometime that week, so she could either do it then or she could give me a call and walk me through it, and I just decided she could come and I'd watch her do it to make it easier. She said she would drop by sometime between Thursday and Sunday, so I told her, just let me know when you're planning on coming. And she said, just expect me to drop in at any time. But of course, if I'm coming with somebody to show them the unit, I'll give you a heads up. And of course, if you're bringing over someone to the unit, let me know as well. I only wanted to know when she was coming so I could plan my schedule around that and be there when she's there. I think she maybe thought that I was trying to be protective of the space and try to figure out when she was coming so I would act differently, but that was not the case. Then I tell her I may have a friend or two over to watch the Super Bowl on Sunday, February 9th, but other than that, I wasn't planning on having any other guests aside from my family who wanted to see where I moved to. Then she immediately says that she doesn't want me hosting any big parties or groups and that I should keep my guests to one person at a time. She also said she was open to having a discussion about this later on if I wanted to. Now, flashback to my first tour of the unit, she asked me if I was someone who liked to throw parties or have guests over. I told her I don't throw parties, but once in a while I like to have my friends over and we'll make dinner. And she didn't flag anything about that, so I figured, hey, it's fine. And also the building has some lounge areas, so if I wanted to host my friends, I could go to one of those spaces. But of course, on that very first tour, if I told her that I host people once in a while and she was completely against that, then I wouldn't have proceeded with an application because I love hosting. It's like part of my personality. I love being the person who can host people at their place, especially because all to y'all shade, my friends don't like hosting for whatever reason. It usually falls on the same person over and over again. So having this space would be able to, split the hosting into two. Obviously, I didn't want to cause any friction between me and my landlord because obviously she cares a lot about her space and who wants to beef with their landlord. So I just responded and I said, okay, cool. I won't have any guests over. That's not a problem. She thanked me for bringing it up and again told me that she was open to having a conversation about it. Obviously, I was really annoyed by this in the moment. However, I was reminded that my lease was actually only 6 months. So it was kind of in that moment where I decided I wouldn't go past that 6 months because I really needed a place where I could host people. So moving on, it is now Saturday, February 8th, 1 week since I had moved in. Around 5:45, she texts me asking if I'm home and I didn't respond until around 2 hours later because I was at work. I told her I wasn't home. She responded. She said, cool, let me know when would be a good time to come fix the blind. Now, this next part is when red flags were being displayed in my head because she texted me asking if I could move the boxes that I had left in the living room. Remember, the day that I moved in, I told her that my move-in process was going to be taking place over the next week or two because, again, I didn't want to do all that stuff in one day. So that request was like, okay, I'm still moving. Like, who cares if there's boxes in the living room? I also didn't remember leaving boxes in the living room to begin with, because as far as I could remember, I had all the boxes in my room because they were just clothing boxes. So I responded nicely and I said, I'm still moving my stuff, but I will move them as soon as I get home. Responded, she said she understood and asked me if I would keep the boxes in my room instead. She also said she was going to be up early in the morning, so if I could move the boxes in the morning instead so there wouldn't be, noise at night, that would be greatly appreciated. That's when I knew she would be staying the night, and I didn't respond to that text message immediately because, again, I was at work. And you might be thinking, Maya, isn't it weird that she's just like popping in and she's the landlord and just doing whatever she wants? Well, technically she was my roommate until she found a new person to be my roommate. So she was the landlord and she was the roommate. I get home a little bit after midnight from work, and to my surprise, she's not there. Her coat wasn't there, her boots weren't there, which didn't really make sense because she told me to make sure that I'm quiet when I get back because she has to be up early in the morning, and I don't know. I was like, whatever. Obviously, my next move is to move these boxes so I don't anger her, but I look around and I only see 2 boxes. One of them is this PR Lego box that I got that I had tucked away in the corner. It wasn't like some ugly big box that was taking up space. It was literally like this little cute wooden crate that I thought went with the aesthetic of the room, so my plan was to leave it there. And the other thing was this little box of recycling that I'll put right here that I had left because there was no room under the cupboards to have space for recycling, so I kind of just used that box as my recycling bin. But that made me even more confused because I'm like, you saw this box of recycling and suggested that I should keep it in my room? Like, that's weird. And also, I live here. This is my space too. Like, why is she already policing me about this stuff? So I took a photo of this recycling bin and I also sent it to my mom and explained the situation, and even she said it was a red flag, which is foreshadowing if I ever did see it. So I just took the recycling to the garbage room and figured I would figure out a new situation for recycling disposal. Now it is Sunday, February 9th, Super Bowl Sunday, if you will. I was working 11:30 to 5:30 that day, and then afterwards I went to my friend's house to watch the Super Bowl. Obviously, I was really hyped because it was Kendrick Lamar's halftime show, and I was looking forward to that for literal months. I get home, and then a couple minutes later, she texts me if I'm home. This was at 11:06 p.m., and I heavily debated responding because it was already so late. I was exhausted. I had so much work to do, but I was like, you know what, whatever. So I responded, and I said, yep, I just walked in the door. She responds, perfect, and I basically imply that she's just gonna come fix this blind and then leave or stay the night. I don't know. This is when it gets spicy, so lock in. So I hop in the shower, and then about 2 minutes later, I hear the front door shut, so I figured she just got here. But then about 30 seconds later, I hear these loud knocks at my bedroom door. Mind you, my bathroom, which I am in, is in my room. So I shout out and I go, hey, I'm just in the shower, give me a couple minutes. And I was confused because I'm like, can't she hear the water running? But I'm like, whatever. So I keep showering. And then 30 seconds later, I hear more aggressive knocks at my front door. So I'm like, okay, this must be an urgency. So I stop my shower and get out. I had an extremely bad feeling about this. My anxiety was through the roof, but I was like, you know what? You just got to keep it together and figure out what the heck this is. I walk out of my room and see her in the kitchen, and I walk up and I say, hey, what's up? And then she looks at me with the most demonic eyes and she goes, we need to have a conversation. And I was stunned. She didn't say, hi, how are you doing? No, nothing. She just sounded angry, and I had never seen this side of her before, so I didn't know what to expect. So we both sit down and I ask her, what's up? And she glares in my eyes for a solid 8 seconds before she even said a word. And then she just starts having this meltdown out of nowhere. She starts saying things like, ever since I moved in, I have been extremely disrespectful to her and of her space. I'm leaving my mess everywhere, that it's a disaster. And I'm looking at her hella confused because I don't know what she was talking about. The whole space looked like it was still brand new. 95% of my belongings were in my room, so I was lost. So I immediately asked her what she was talking about because I was confused. And then she starts going on about how I'm not the only person who lives here. I can't leave my clothes in the dryer because she came home and wanted to use the machine and she couldn't because my clothes were there. Like, she's the one who said she would barely be there. So I didn't think leaving clothes in the dryer for 12 hours was going to be an issue. Keeps going on, saying that I'm trashing her place and this is not what we discussed. As she's doing all this, I'm looking at her hella confused because I genuinely don't know what's going on. I know I'm not a messy person. I know I'm not a disrespectful person, especially to someone who has been so nice to me. Everything she was accusing me of was simply not true. And then she goes, also, I don't like the fact that you're an instigator and you like to start fights. Huh? What are you talking about? So calmly, I was trying to reassure her while defending myself. I said, I haven't started a fight with you. I've responded to all your messages. I've kept this place 100% clean, so I don't know what you want from me. She keeps accusing me of random things. So it just got to the point where I was like, okay, what would you like me to do? How can I fix this situation? Because I don't know what to do. She said she was uncomfortable with me living there and she wanted me to leave. So I said, right now, clocking the fact that it was close to maybe 11:30, 11:45 at night, she goes, yeah, like, leave now, like, get your stuff and leave. And I could have fought it. I could have said no. I could have done a lot of different things, but I was so terrified of her in this moment. I didn't know if she was going to use violence, if she was going to hurt me, if she was going to do anything to me, because again, I don't know a lot about her. And although it should have been something where I speak out against it and defend it, I was prioritizing my safety in that moment because that is the most important thing to do. So I just got up, went to my room, and started packing up my stuff. My mom is an angel. Even at 11:45 at night, she is going to come through to help her favorite daughter. So she gets my dad and they start making their way over to the building. Then the landlord comes to my room, opens the door, and asks me for my keys. Should I have given her the keys in that moment? No, but I was so emotional. I was exhausted. And again, I wanted to prioritize my safety. So I stopped what I was doing and gave her the keys. Then she has a complete attitude change and all of a sudden is saying, hey, let me know if you need any help. I have boxes. I have bags. I can call security and see if they have a trolley for you to borrow. And I'm just standing there just like, what is happening here? Like, I feel like I'm talking to two different people. I told her no, I was going to deal with everything by myself, and I knew my parents were coming and they would be able to help me with everything. A few minutes later, she calls me into the kitchen and asked me what happened to the dishwasher. And obviously I have no clue what happened because I had only used it once during my week there. I washed my stuff, I put dishes away, and I had started loading stuff with new dirty dishes. I look in the dishwasher and there's a whole pool of water at the bottom, which I swear was not there when I used it. Because if I can bring up an issue about this little adhesive that's having a problem, I would definitely bring up an issue about the dishwasher flooding. I told her I have no idea, that wasn't there when I used it, and I went back to packing. Then my mom texted me saying that they had arrived and I told them that I was going to come get them. So I leave my room, I go to the landlord and I say, hey, can I use my keys just to get my parents from the lobby because they're gonna bring me some boxes and bags and help me move. And she says, I'd prefer you not. So you're gonna kick me out and refuse my parents access to the building so they can help me. You're off your rocker. Then I asked her if she would allow me to go downstairs and get them and her give me access back up into the unit so again they can come help me. And she says, honestly, just take all your stuff, put it in the hallway and deal with it after that. And the real kicker, she said, and please hurry up because I have work early in the morning. Ma'am, you are kicking me out in the middle of the night and you tell me to hurry up and won't let my parents come up? You are crazy! Then my dad starts calling, so I run into my bathroom so she couldn't hear what was going on, and he asks me what floor I'm on. And I tell him, hey, you know, this landlord's crazy. She doesn't want you guys to come up here. He goes, no, tell me the unit. I'm coming up there right now. So I whisper the unit into my phone and then I hang up. I would have found a way to let them up anyways because I really needed their support at the time for moving and dealing with this crazy woman. So at this point, it's past midnight and I am basically picking up all my stuff and bringing it to the front door and trying to clear out my room as quickly as possible. Door was left a crack open because I also started putting stuff out into the hallway, and then the door opened because my dad was there and he starts handing me boxes and bags. The landlord comes out of her room and starts having another meltdown. She starts yelling at my dad, accusing him of trespassing, saying that he needs to leave her property, that he has no business being there, and all this stuff. And I'm just like, girl, come on. He hasn't even taken one step into the unit, and you're saying he's trespassing when you know for a damn fact that this person, my dad, is here to help me. What's wrong with you? So she's telling him that he has to leave the property immediately. But obviously, he's not listening, and he shouldn't, because he is allowed to help me move my stuff if I need his help. And I turn to her and I say, this is my dad. He is helping me move. She doesn't care. She's still accusing him of trespassing and all this other stuff. He keeps yelling and eventually closes the door on him. And the thing about my dad is that he will stand his ground, but he is not aggressive. So he was just doing everything in his power to keep the situation calm while helping me at the same time. I open the door again to pass them some more stuff, and now my mom is there. Landlord comes out and starts yelling and swearing at both of them. She repeats the fact that I'm not allowed to have guests over. Bitch, they're not even guests. They're not even allowed to step into the unit. Are you good? No, you're not. I am just so overwhelmed and emotional that I kind of block that out, and I'm still moving my stuff from my room. My parents tell her she is a paying tenant, that I am allowed to have help if I want to, and she is just saying, you know what, no, she's not allowed to be here anymore. Neither are you guys. She's getting all her money back. Don't worry. This is just going on and on and on. My parents are still handing me stuff. She's trying to block them out. She's trying to close the door on them. And eventually she says, don't make me escalate this, because I will call the police if I have to. Ma'am, you're gonna call the police on my parents for helping me move? Are you crazy? Are you crazy? He's out here trying to convince us that we were doing criminal activity, which we were not. And so my parents, who are very strong-willed and very level-headed, told her to call the police. And then she did it. At this point, I really knew she was delusional. So she calls the police, and I actually take my phone, put it face down on the counter, and started recording, because I'm like, I need to record everything that's happening right now, because again, this is insane. She is giving the cops all her information, says that there's two strangers breaking into her home. She's told them multiple times that they need to leave, and yada, 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 yada. And I'm just like, wow, this is so funny to me, because I can't believe you're escalating it this far when you're the one who decided to kick me out. But the important thing to note about this whole police call is not once did she ask them to show up, which proves that she never felt threatened in the first place. She was just doing it as a scare tactic, and I didn't really care that she was calling the police. I actually wanted them to show up and see what the situation was, because they would know that she's the crazy one. So after 5 minutes of her spinning this story on them, I was almost done moving out all my stuff. So I hear her on the phone, and she goes, you know what? I think they're leaving now. I think it's okay. Mind you, for the past 5 minutes, she was like, can you just stay on the line with me, because I feel threatened, whatever. Hangs up the phone, and I notice she's now taken it upon herself to start packing my stuff for me after I specifically told her I didn't want her help. She's taking my jackets out of the closet, putting it in boxes, and I don't want her touching my stuff, because again, she's literally like insane. Then my dad tells me to take a final sweep of the whole place to make sure that I had all my stuff. Go back in my room, because that's where most of my stuff was, and my landlord is following me around, opening drawers, making sure everything is gone as well. Then she has another complete attitude change, and she looks me in my eyes and goes, I am so sorry this didn't work out. It wasn't personal for me. I just had to put an end to this because it wasn't working out, but I genuinely wish you the best on your future endeavors. And I'm just standing here like, are you not the one who just called the police on my parents and swore at us? Hello? But I just stood there so overwhelmed. I was kind of just looking at her. And then she proceeds to hug me. I shouldn't have even said this, but I said, thank you for the opportunity. And then I left. Normal me would have went all in. I would have been screaming at her. But again, I was so emotional. I was tired. I wasn't thinking straight. I wasn't me in that moment. And my only priority was to get out of that unit. I leave the unit. She closes the door behind me. And I am just left in the hallway with both my parents and everything I own just scattered in the hallway. You have them trying to pack things in boxes and organize things. I'm trying to help them, but I'm sweaty and I'm exhausted. But eventually we got all the stuff down to the bottom floor. We packed up both of our cars. Luckily, everything fit between my car and theirs. We went home, and it was about maybe 1:30 a.m. by the time this whole thing wrapped up. We threw everything into the garage, and then my parents asked me for a rundown of everything that had happened prior. So I told them, and we decided in the morning that we would be sending her a message basically telling her that she needs to send me my money back after kicking me out. So that's exactly what I did. The next morning, I sent her this message through text message and email with the total amount, and told her that if I didn't get the money back by 5 o'clock, that I would be contacting the tenant board. She responds with this load of BS, saying that I was asked to leave lawfully and that it was my choice to leave, that I had people enter her home after explicitly telling me they were not welcome, which is false. She said, "I'd rather you not they are not allowed up here." She then accuses me and my parents of harassing her, that I engaged in numerous violations of our agreement, and the amount of my refund will be determined via legal channels. She also advised for me not to contact her further as to not harass her anymore, and that she's only contacting me via email moving forward. At this point, I knew she was playing me because all of this was a bunch of lies. So I respond and I say, "You illegally evicted me from the apartment using intimidation and harassment. I left in a hurry last night for my own safety, but I am legally entitled to be in a unit that I paid for and signed a lease agreement for. You took away the key, and now I have no place to stay, and you're refusing to refund my first and last month's rent, which I need to secure a new place immediately. I will be taking full legal action to remedy the situation that you have created, including damages caused." I wanted her to know that I would be taking this extremely seriously because this is my money we're talking about. Like, just for reference, she had almost $4,000 between all the deposits that I had given her. There was no way in hell I was gonna let her get away with this. She responds and goes, "Maya, stop immediately with the false accusations. I will not hesitate to pursue legal action / criminal proceedings against you for harassment, slander, and defamation. You know that I did not harass or threaten you at any point." Are the false accusations in the room with us? I literally detailed what happened to her, and she knows I'm telling the truth. And now she's accusing me of criminal behavior, slander, defamation. Do you even know what these things mean? But I guess she can try the whole defamation thing after I drop her name, because I will be doing that. Anyways, let's continue with this crazy email. She goes, "I understand you may not like the outcome of your choices to repeatedly violate our agreement terms. I remain firm in my decision regardless. Please be advised that there is a record of the police call about your family member refusing to step out of my home when asked, repeatedly banging my front door open, and physically barricading the door to prevent me from closing it, all against my will in my own home. These are all contraventions of the criminal code and other laws. Our interactions from Sunday night are well documented, and I reserve the right to proceed legally at any point. Let it be known that me nor my parents harassed her at any point that night, because all we did was move my stuff. We didn't swear at her. We didn't put our hands on her. All they said was she is allowed to have help moving her stuff. And that's what she's calling harassment. Again, I knew that all of these were scare tactics. She was trying to intimidate me, and it wasn't working. But let's proceed with the email. She goes, "Please provide a detailed line-by-line breakdown of the refund amount you are requesting. To clarify, the 9 days of your occupancy were not for free." This is another point where she shows her weakness, because she was the one who said that my refund was being determined via legal channels. And now she's asking me for a line-by-line breakdown. All my deposits were made via e-transfer. So she should be able to calculate the total amount for my refund because I labeled every single e-transfer that I sent her. I knew she was stalling, and I don't have time to stall because it's my freaking money. So I respond with this. Stop with the false accusations. My own parents came to help me move my stuff, took no more than one step into our unit, and then you swore at them and called the police on them. It was not physically possible for me to move all that stuff alone after confiscating my keys and access to the building when you aggressively kicked me out of a unit that I am paying for on a freezing cold winter's night. I did not threaten or harass you, and I have evidence of this. You're claiming I repeatedly violated our lease terms when I was not given any fair communications or warning about any wrongdoing. May I remind you, our roommate agreement states, in the event of a disagreement or dispute between the roommates, they agree to communicate respectfully and work towards resolving the issue. And I was completely blindsided that night, left with nowhere to stay. Leaving my laundry in the dryer and having a box of recycling out does not violate any of the terms of our agreement, and you are aware of this. What happened that night is punishable by law, and I've already filed a complaint with the tenant board with evidence to resolve this case. You've already stated in a previous email that my refund amount would be determined by legal channels, so asking me again for an itemized total is clearly a stall tactic while you unjustly hold on to my money, causing me unnecessary hardship. This is another form of intimidation and harassment. You have no right to hold on to my money. I am still demanding the full total provided yesterday, but I will be entitled to more to cover damages and moving costs according to the board. She said, you took the keys off your keychain and placed them in my hand. I didn't take them and they were not confiscated. I asked you for your keys back once we understood your residency was terminated. I have the exchange recorded. She's right. She asked for the key and I didn't have to give it back, but I did. But that is literally confiscation because I asked for them back to let my parents up and she refused. Do you know what confiscation is? When I asked you to leave, you stated clearly your parents were coming to take you home. You did not ask for more time. It's untrue that you had nowhere to go. You were clear that you were going safely to your family's home, also recorded. Now, this whole exchange is blurry to me because I was so in shock. I don't remember telling her that my parents were coming to get me because I went in my room and called them secretly so she wouldn't know. Also, she keeps telling me that she has all of these interactions recorded, but I don't think any of that actually holds up in court because she was filming me without me knowing in my own home. So again, more scare tactics. She goes, I helped you depart as smoothly as possible in many ways, including arranging for concierge to provide you with a dolly and having them grant access to the loading area indoors to make things easier for you. You are free to pursue whatever legal options you like. The roommate agreement we signed is not a lease, and it also states that when violating the terms of the agreement, I have the right to terminate the residency. This was also explained to you verbally when you came for your second viewing. Everything was communicated to you clearly with transparency. Your attempt at minimizing the full extent of your violations doesn't change the facts. My actions are lawful and I stand by them. I note your refusal to cooperate in my attempt to finalize returning your funds. My refusal to cooperate. Mine? I literally told her to check her receipts and check the balance that she owes me. So why is she saying that I'm not being cooperative? Unbelievable. So I respond again. You can pause to read this one. But I basically tell her, stop stalling. You're holding on to my money and you need to give it back. And then she says this, pause to read. Again, she is stalling because why do I have to calculate it? You have the documentation. I was honestly tired of the back and forth, so I sent her a line by line breakdown of all the money that she owes me, and I even took out the 9 days that I lived there. And then she responds, again, complete attitude change. She thanks me for breaking down the total, tells me that she's going to double check her numbers, and that she'll be sending me a mutual release agreement tomorrow for both of us to sign. After it's signed, she'll send me my money back. This was the first message that she sent where she wasn't accusing me of some BS, and she actually sounded like she wanted to move towards an agreement. So I was feeling somewhat good. But I did not have a good feeling about signing this mutual release agreement because I went back to our roommate agreement and it literally said, if this agreement is terminated, that I would be getting all my money back within 7 days of the agreement being terminated. It didn't say I had to sign anything in order to get my money back. So I was like, you know what? Let me just wait and see what this mutual release agreement is about, because she's already proving herself to be of ulterior motive. She's trying to scam me. So I'm going to read this thing in detail when she sends it to me. But about 15 minutes later, she sends me a new email. You can pause to read, but she basically said that I need to take down any content that was filmed in the unit because it violates our roommate agreement. Now, on January 31st, the day that I signed the agreement, there was a part of the agreement that said that no commercial activity was allowed in the unit. So I couldn't do any activity that I was getting paid for, including filming videos online that I would be getting paid for. Now, obviously, I flagged this because she and I both knew that I make content for a living, and if I can't film brand deals in the unit, I can't do my job from home. So why would I agree to that? So I bring this up to her and she goes, as long as I'm not showing major elements of her home, like out a window or like the span of her living room or anything like that, it would be fine. I told her my brand deals are usually videos with a plain background anyway, and she said that was okay. Up until she evicted me on Sunday, February 9th, I had not posted any videos that were filmed in her unit that I got paid for. I had posted some of my regular rant videos and me dancing in the living room, but I didn't get paid for those videos directly, so they didn't violate any part of our agreement. However, on Tuesday, February 11th, 2 days after I evicted, I did post a brand collaboration that was filmed in her unit, but the background of the video was kitchen cabinets. It followed the guidelines that she had given me. I didn't show anything outside of windows. I didn't show the span of her living room. It was kitchen cabinets. I'll literally post the screenshot right here. And no, I did not post the paid video out of spite. It was a video that was scheduled to be posted that day. So what I concluded is that she's under the impression that I get paid for every single video I post, which is not the case. So she is under the impression that I violated this agreement, which I didn't do. So because I didn't violate this, I asked her to provide me a copy of the roommate agreement with all the things I violated highlighted, so I would be able to understand what led to my eviction, because I still don't understand. You can pause to read it in entirety, but the part I want to highlight was, you expressed that you understood and stated that your videos are just your face with a blank wall in the background, that nothing identifying my home would be shown. It was explained to you that commercial activity creates unnecessary risk and liability for me and is a violation of my other agreements with respect to my home. She basically reiterates that the violations were verbally communicated to me and tries to re-explain the commercial content violations, which again, I did not violate. So I disregard this again because it's a load of BS again. So I asked her to send me this mutual release agreement so I could look it over and make sure everything was good and sign it so I could just get my money back, because I just wanted to end this thing. I was tired of the back and forth. And she responds and goes, confirm your compliance about the social media content. So what she's saying is, I will send you the agreement, which includes a clause that requires you to take the content down after you take the content down. Huh? How about you tell me what content violates this agreement and send me the agreement so I can read it over? Like, why am I agreeing to things over email when you're going to put it in a contract anyway? Mind you, this is now Wednesday, 3 days after I was evicted. I was at work when she sent this, so I figured, let me finish up my shift and I'll respond tomorrow after I've read over everything so I can craft a proper response and not respond emotionally. Because in that moment, I wanted to say, give me back my damn money, you crazy psychotic bitch. But at 11 p.m. that night, I hadn't responded and she sent me a new email. I'll read this one out, a complete attitude change. She goes, as we move towards closing out this matter, I wanted to address some points. First, I apologize for the delay in sending you the mutual release agreement. I will send it to you as soon as it's ready. This is all unexpected for me as well, and I'm doing my best to navigate things with the care, regard, and due diligence necessary. Please check your spam folder, as the document will be sent via DocuSign and not from this email. In the meantime, I assure you that I will be returning everything I owe to you financially. I have no intention or desire to keep what isn't mine. We just have to follow due process as far as formalities, and I've been advised that we have to sign a release first to close things out properly. I still request that you take down your social media content that shows parts of my home. You assured me before we finalized the agreement that you would not post anything like that, and you have an opportunity to do the right thing by correcting this. I hope you believe me when I tell you I genuinely do wish you all the best. It's unfortunate things didn't work out the way we hoped, and it was never personal for me. We just turned out to not be a good fit, and I owed it to myself to put an end to the stress the situation was creating for me right away instead of letting it get worse. This email made me feel like we were moving in the right direction because she seemed like she had intentions to close out this matter, but I was still stressed about this mutual agreement because I had no idea what she was going to try to slide in there and potentially scam me even further. So I responded the next morning on February 13th and said, "You have stated in your email yesterday that you have every intention to return everything owed to me and that you have no desire to hold on to money that is not yours. I do need some time to review this contract as it's very lengthy and detailed. In the meantime, in a good act of faith that you claim that you're operating in, I expect my security deposit, as well as my key and garage deposits, to be returned to me immediately in accordance with Section 5 of our roommate agreement." I thought this was a very fair response because I agreed to look over her contract, and in the meantime, I just wanted her to show that she truly had no intentions of keeping my money. Then she responds and goes, "Funds will be transferred after we agreed to and signed the release. Take the time you need to review. I will be sending you a commercial invoice for the use of my property in contravention of our residential roommate agreement for each known instance of commercial activity in my home, should all content not be removed by 9 p.m. today." It's extremely important to note that she said, "Take your time," okay? Remember that. And for this commercial invoice that she's sending me, again, this is a load of BS because nowhere in our agreement did it say, if you use this property for commercial activity, you will be charged. Moving on to this mutual release agreement, it was full of lies, deception, and falsities that was basically protecting her from me suing her. I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but I specifically want to highlight this part that says non-disclosure, and it basically states that I'm not to share this document with any third parties. Like, prove that you're not a scammer, final boss challenge. Like, I can't share this document with anybody? Come on now. So I respond again and I say, "Please provide me with the examples of the specific content that you claim violate the commercial social media agreement in a timely manner, as I cannot take any action until this is done." Like, she needs to tell me which content violates this clause. I really wanted her to send me videos that I wasn't paid for so I could just respond and go, "I actually didn't violate this because I didn't get paid for this video." I was waiting for her to do that. Pause to read, but I basically reiterated that she is illegally holding onto my money and blackmailing me, and I'm not having it. I also want to note that she sent me this contract via DocuSign, which is an online platform used to send agreements, and it makes it easier to initial and add signatures without having to download PDFs and email back and forth. I was already familiar with this platform because I've used it multiple times, but I want to highlight the fact that the issuer of the document can revoke it at any time. So she could send me a contract, and if I didn't sign it, she could just wipe it from existence. Because she was already being dodgy and scammy with me, I made sure to screen record the whole document for my records. And I'm so glad I did, because less than 24 hours later, she sent me a new email that says, "Please read the following carefully as there are material changes to this matter now in effect. My decisions are legally sound and well-founded, and I am confident they will be upheld in any court of law. I have now voided the mutual release agreement, and I will be having it updated legally to include charges due to me as follows. Number 1, damages owed to me for loss of rental income arising from your early and unexpected termination caused by your breach of terms of our roommate agreement. And number 2, charges for each published instance of you breaching the non-commercial use clause." I'm sorry. You're charging me for loss of rental income when you decided to kick me out in the middle of the night. On top of that, you are still holding on to my money. What are we talking about here? Moving on. Correction. It's not blackmail. It's due process. It is legal standard practice to have a release signed prior to closing out a matter financially. Miss Ma'am, yes, it is blackmail when you put blatant lies into a legally binding document and refuse to return what is owed to me until I sign off on a bunch of lies. That is blackmail if I ever did see it. Breach of terms. I have extended every possible opportunity and then some, having requested politely several times for you to remedy the situation by taking down the breach content. Your unauthorized commercial filming on my residential property was a clear and direct violation of our legally binding roommate agreement. Your content is still up and it's now 9:55 p.m. My final opportunity, as communicated to you previously, was to remove the breach content by 9 p.m. today. Charges are now being imposed at the standard commercial filming rates that I'm legally entitled to, resulting from your violation of my rights under our contract, as well as my right to peaceful living in my home. Remember, guys, I literally sent her an email that tells her she needs to send me examples of the breach content because I don't know what she's talking about. I told her I cannot take any content down until she specifies the content that is breach. Now, some of you may say that I should have just taken down the content in order to get my money back, but I knew even if I did, she wasn't gonna let up, right? Some of the posts that I made were for brands that I wasn't getting paid for, but they sent me something and I wanted to acknowledge the fact that they sent me something in order to make a video. And what do I look like deleting that after they did me a favor? Like, it just looks bad. It's bad for my brand. It's bad for my business. So me and my parents were really digging deep, trying to figure out why she was harping so much on this social media content thing, because it didn't really make sense to me. But after some conversations with some professionals, turns out that there's a very likely chance that she's not actually the landlord. She probably fears that the real one would see the content and then get confused. And after contacting some realtor friends, turns out she is not the landlord. She is not the actual landlord. They actually got the names of the real landlords, but we could only find them via LinkedIn, so we reached out to them to see if we could get any answers. Moving on, because your numerous breaches of our legally binding roommate agreement led to terminating our roommate agreement early and unexpectedly, this has created undue financial hardship for me, as it is not possible or reasonable to find a replacement tenant immediately. Though I'm making every possible effort to find a replacement as soon as possible, including reaching out to other applicants that were not selected when you were, they have found other places to rent already. This ordeal you have caused has created significant undue hardship for me. Thus, financial damages for loss of rental income are owed to me legally in the form of rental charges until I can find and vet a suitable replacement. In the interest of reasonability, I am willing to limit these charges to the end of the month. This is just comical. I'm not even going to get into detail here because the delusion is speaking for itself. And she sends me a new mutual release agreement, and it's even worse than the first one. There's more lies, more falsities, more BS. For starters, she claims that there are 4 recorded instances of commercial usage on my social media pages and that she's charging me $100 per instance. She is now charging me for her time, which apparently is worth $250 per hour. She charged me for 6 hours, totaling $1,500. What is this time she's charging me for? Consultation time. All that time she took putting contracts together. That's the time she's charging me for. But remember, she was the one who said, take your time. You told me to take my time, and now you're charging me for your time. Huh? But how nice of her to give me a 2-hour discount because she sent me the agreement late. Mind you, when all this back and forth was going on for the entire week, I was at work or at a work-related event, so I couldn't always respond to her right away. There was a big part of me that was convinced that I wasn't going to get my money back. So I spent almost every day at work working double shifts trying to get that money back. She isn't understanding is that I need proper time to review these contracts. These contracts were like 8 or 9 pages long. I can't just skim through them and agree to them, especially because she was showing behavior that proved she was trying to scam me out of my money. So this new agreement, this new BS agreement came with this note, and it said, "You will have a maximum of 24 hours to review and respond to the agreement from the time of receipt. Beyond that, the balance of funds owing will either be sent to you or billed to you as lawfully appropriate. All funds need to be transferred no later than February 16th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. The exception to this would be your refusal to cooperate with the process, which would push us outside the 7-day period stated in the terms of our agreement around deposits." This was a hella long email that I don't want to read in entirety, so you can pause to read the rest of it. She was basically giving me around 24 hours to sign this BS contract on Saturday, February 15th on a non-work day. If that isn't blackmail, I don't know what is. Especially because, once again, she told me to take my time. Also, since when does it take 6 hours to send me an e-transfer? She said I needed to agree to the document by 5 o'clock that day so she'd have enough time to send me the e-transfer. What? So of course I respond and I go, "As per my last message, I requested that you send me detailed examples of my so-called violations of the commercial content clause in our roommate agreement for me to review. I told you I cannot take any action until this is done, and I haven't received anything. I'm failing to understand why you're giving me time constraints to review your lengthy contract when you told me to take my time. I have been at work every day since, trying to make up the money you are still withholding from me, and I cannot proceed without reading everything. I find it comical that you're attempting to bill me for your time as well as accusing me of financial hardship when you are the only one in possession of property that does not belong to you. Lost rental income is not my responsibility when you willingly chose to terminate our agreement abruptly in the middle of the night on February 9th, 2025, without prior notice or warning, and creating tremendous hardship and stress in my life. You exasperated this hardship by illegally holding on to my security deposit and the balance of my prepaid rent and other deposits. You have decided to deny me of the shelter that I paid for by throwing me out abruptly, and you've decided to confiscate all my money, deliberately depriving me of the ability to secure other shelter. Speaking of deadlines, you have until Sunday, February 16th at 11:59 p.m. to return my funds as per our roommate agreement that you created. This is the balance due to me tonight, no exceptions. This is the amount that you calculated and agreed to return to me in your previous email communication." And then she comes back with this. "Again, your valid concerns are welcome. However, I will not entertain games and will not waste time on frivolous requests. Your social media profiles are public. There is no need for me to send you any examples of your breaches you're already aware of. I have all the evidence I would need to submit in court to support a solid case against you. I have calculated the commercial charges for these breaches generously in your favor based on industry standards. I will not negotiate on that any further. You lawfully owe me that money. Everything else has been explained and communicated very clearly to you in detail. Your actions led to termination of the roommate agreement, which resulted in a loss of rental income for me. I'm legally entitled to that money. I have again generously kept the charges to a minimum, only to the end of this month. It could take much longer to find and vet a replacement. I will not negotiate further on that amount. You lawfully owe me that amount and likely more. No, you are not thrown out. I told you exactly this after explaining to you all the issues and contract breaches in detail verbally. I'd like you to leave. You agreed, got up, and started packing. When I checked in with you minutes later to offer my assistances, you confirmed explicitly that your parents were getting you in their truck and that you were going back home to continue living with them, same as you had been prior to moving in with me. Billing for my time is also supported legally in Ontario. There is nothing comical about it. Creating a timeline for us is necessary because, unlike your documented actions, I am endeavoring to close this matter within the timeline provided in our roommate agreement. It takes a lot more time to consult with experts and draft agreements than it does for you to read them and raise specific concerns. Again, no funds can be transferred until we sign the release. We have to follow due process, and this is a standard way to close out a dispute. As you have raised no objections to the terms in the mutual release agreement following your review, other than the amount of your refund, which I will not negotiate on, I trust the rest is acceptable to you. Once I've received the release duly signed to you by DocuSign by 5 p.m., I will transfer the amount owed to you immediately. If you choose to leave this matter open beyond today, I will be billing the full amount owed to me, and I will not be engaging in any further direct communication with you. At that point, you will need to pursue this matter in court, and I will only respond through formal channels there. At that point, you will also be responsible for legal costs and risk owing so much more. So she sent me that on Sunday, February 16th at 4:25, giving me 35 minutes to go back to this contract and sign it so I can get my money back. It's also around 6 hours until she was contractually obligated to send me my deposits back. Mind you, when she sent these things to me, I was at work. Also, if I signed that contract, I would only be getting $1,700 and not my $3,200 because she calculated that that was all I was entitled to minus all her deductions and charges. But 25 minutes later, she sends me another email. Maya, in the interest on continued transparency on my end, I want to be clear that if we do take this to court, my calculations for commercial charges and loss of income will not be so generous. I do not consent to you wasting any more of my time than you already have. My billed hours are also subject to increase to compensate for my time in court. This was even more evidence that she was trying to scare me and intimidate me by putting more potential charges in my head, because she was basically saying, if we take this to court, it's gonna cost you so much more money, and I'm not gonna be so generous with the money that you owe me, yada yada yada. But I knew I was in the right, so I wasn't gonna let any of these scare tactics get to me. I knew she was kind of grasping for straws to try to get me to sign this thing, and I wasn't having it. So I respond and I say, either you don't know how a release agreement works, or you assume that I do not. No rational or reasonable individual issues a document of that length with a response deadline of a few hours. As the issuer of this document, even you have edited and retracted it multiple times since initially sending it. So when you are sure that this is the final version, please let me know. My haste in signing a contract with you is because you seemed like a genuine person, and that's what got me into the situation in the first place. You cunningly described it as a lease agreement multiple times, only to present me with a roommate agreement. The reason is now obvious. As such, I have been counseled to have the final version of this release reviewed meticulously, and that can only be done by the reviewer on a working day, not over the weekend or on a holiday. As you repeatedly mention, due diligence is mandatory. I am working and am unable to respond to any subsequent emails for the day. Govern yourself accordingly. So I sent that at 5:13 p.m., 13 minutes after the deadline she put on me. Again, I was also at work, so I decided in that moment that that was going to be the last response that I send for the day. And on top of that, I also wanted to let the deadline run down, because if she did not send me my security deposits by 11:59 p.m. that night, she would be in violation of the roommate agreement that we both signed that she created. She wrote it. Then she responds again. I won't entertain leaving this matter open indefinitely. Your other commitments are not for me to worry about. You would do well to stop attempting to skew facts illegitimately, and you're bordering on libel in your communication. You've been warned. As you know very well, I have been 100% truthful in all my communications. A full day for review is materially more than a few hours. This pattern of yours shows a lack of integrity over and above your willingness to take responsibility for yourself, which is why I'm not inclined to engage with you any further. You already know that I was 100% transparent about the agreements we entered into. I never once promised a lease. I note your attempt to continue making false narratives. You took your time reading everything before signing on January 31st. You initialed having understood everything clearly. Take responsibility for yourself and your actions. No one forced you or tricked you. I have full evidence supporting my transparency. You signed a legally binding agreement knowing full well that you had no intention to be true in honoring the terms. Your poor choices have created this dispute, and it's you that needs to learn to govern yourself accordingly. I needed to revise the MRA to reflect your lack of cooperation despite my multiple attempts to offer you grace by giving you chances to take down the content. I have no need to make any further changes. I stand by everything in the mutual release as being true and in good faith. If your request for more time because the end of our 7-day period falls on the weekend was genuine, you would have raised it much sooner than this evening. Exactly how much time are you asking for? In the interests of rightfully preserving my time and energy, I have no desire to prolong my interactions with you. Exactly how much time are you asking for? So her deadline wasn't really a deadline. Once again, I was at work, so I just let the time run by all the way up until 11:59 to see if she was going to send me my money. Waited and waited and waited, and the clock struck midnight, and I did not get an e-transfer. How bold of her to violate her own contract. But 10 minutes after midnight, I get a new email from her. As stated in the mutual release agreement sent to you yesterday, the agreement is deemed executed once funds are transferred and accepted. I transfer you the money owed to you in the amount of $1,732 at 11:59 on February 16th, 2025 in good faith to settle and close this matter. In accepting these funds, I accept your deemed agreement that this matter is now settled and closed. I do not consent to communicating with you directly any further. I have family members in need of my support and care in their grave medical challenges, and I reserve the right not to waste any further time or energy in entertaining you or your games further. I also reserve the right to protect my peace from any further vexatious and frivolous interactions from you. I have made every possible attempt to resolve this with you fairly and amicably, only to be met with your false narratives and games. You are free to pursue whatever legal channels you find appropriate should you wish to continue this dispute formally at this point. You have my legal address for service of any official notices. No need to reply to this email. In the absence of any further action on your part within the next 7 days, the mutual release agreement is deemed to agreed to and executed. I did not receive that e-transfer until around 12:30 a.m., so she was still in violation of the contract. But hey, at least I got a portion of my money back. I find it hilarious that she brought up these family members who need her attention, and how when I was bringing up that I don't have time because I'm at work, she doesn't care. Did your family need you when you were drafting up these agreements that were full of lies? Did your family need you when you decided to go back and forth with me for a whole week instead of just sending me my money back and ending this? But when I need time to review her 8-page agreements that are full of lies, she charges me for her time. Oh, okay, that makes no sense. This is even more evidence of how uneducated and how inconsistent she is. Clearly, she had no intention to respond to any more emails, but I figured I'm gonna send one more. Hello, S. You'll be pleased to know that this is likely the last email you will receive from me regarding this matter. I must be honest, by Wednesday of last week, I had resigned myself to the fact that I was being duped by a professional scammer and would never see a cent of my $3,400. But I was wrong. A professional scammer would have ghosted me after I left that night. They would have banked on the calculated risk that after I realized the time and costs of small claims court, that I would give up and take the loss. A professional scammer would have not invested the amount of time and research that you did in preparing the plethora of emails you sent. A professional scammer would not have bothered with a 10-page release agreement. The fact that you put it in writing signaled your confidence in the information you were providing me. Like, come on, a professional scammer would have not documented the following that could be easily verified or requested for verification in a court proceeding. I basically listed out a bunch of things that she stated in contracts that just weren't true. Initially, all I wanted from this whole ordeal was to get my money back, minus the 9 days, and forget this ever happened. Thankfully, I have a network of friends and associates that were not mentally immobilized by the humiliation of having to call their parents at midnight to say that they were evicted without cause. Thankfully, within my network, there are professionals of various backgrounds, some of whom are experienced and well paid to investigate matters such as this. They helped me see that several decisions I was forced to make last week when my life was turned upside down will come with a significant impact and financial cost in the coming weeks. Thankfully, these professionals worked on my behalf while I was working 12-hour shifts and enlightened me on the discoveries I would have otherwise not even considered, much less known. For example, I understand that I may not be the first person you've had a similar dispute with. As you know, my original request was for this amount. However, I have been advised that I'm entitled to this amount plus damages. Thankfully for you, all I'm asking is for an e-transfer of this amount by Friday, February 21st at 11:59. This is the amount I paid you upfront on January 31st. I'm no legal expert, but I understand that making that payment to me would put closure to this. And that would be your best case scenario, financially speaking. The level of interest this matter has garnered is fascinating. Oh, I almost forgot why I thanked you in the subject line. In the interest of transparency on my end, if we do take this to court, thank you for providing me with all the supporting documentation I need. I didn't think she would respond, but she did. And this is what she said. Your emails are not being opened or read. Legal correspondence can be directed to my mailing address. This is my final correspondence to you. Goodbye. I actually laughed at this response, and this is the last thing that I've heard from her since. So you may be asking, what now? What I've been doing since? Well, I have been trying to get my money back in entirety because, again, it is a lot of money. Landlords haven't responded to me even though we have reached out via LinkedIn, email, and Facebook, so that was a brick wall. Maybe they're in on the scam, I don't know. I also went to the police station to see if they could do anything about it. I literally pulled up, I told them a brief explanation of the story, and the policeman gave me this QR code to scan, and it led me to a police report that I could fill out. So I went into the parking lot of the police station and spent probably 35 minutes filling out this police report. 2 minutes after I submitted it, I got an email back saying that they don't deal with landlord-tenant issues. And I'm just confused because why is it that a police officer knew about the situation, knew that it was about landlords and tenants, and still told me to fill out? So that was a huge waste of my time. Thank you. That was completely useless, and you are useless as well. Also tried contacting the tenant board. However, they take forever to respond. And I kind of realized that because I technically wasn't a tenant, it was just a roommate agreement, that there's probably nothing they can do about it. Even called the police non-emergency line the day after I got kicked out, but they refused to help as well. Also did look into a small claims court. It does cost to do that, which I didn't really have a problem with because I just wanted to make sure this woman wouldn't do this to anybody ever again. But I learned it could take up to a year for them to get back to you on your claim. But even if the court comes to the conclusion that she owes me that money, it's my job to police her to get it back. They cannot enforce her to send me back the money. So what would be the point? Then Miss Girly has blocked me on Facebook, so I can only assume that she's posting this listing again and trying to find her next victim because this is probably how she makes her money. I'm a legalist. I am not someone who lets people get away with things, so I am making sure that she is not posting any new listings to scam somebody else because I don't want this happening to somebody else. Honestly, she's lucky that I'm not crazy. I could be posted up outside that building waiting for her to come back, but I don't stoop that low. I've told a bunch of friends and family about her. I've given them her Facebook profile so they can monitor to see if she posts any new listings. But of course, that's not enough for me. I need people to know about this rental scam so it doesn't happen to them. I'm not one to fall for a scam. I'm very good at identifying when someone's trying to play me, but this one was very, very well crafted. So I'm going to pin her name in the comments so you guys can be aware of this individual and stay clear of her. And you can check out my Instagram highlights to get more information. Now, this is what I want you guys to take away from this video. Number one, try to avoid roommate agreements. Really try to lock down a lease agreement and make sure your name is on the lease. Both roommate agreements and lease agreements are legally binding documents, but you are more protected if you have a lease agreement. Number two, read contracts thoroughly. The only thing that she did that she was legally allowed to do was terminate our agreement, and I signed that contract because I trusted her, but I shouldn't have. So try to put clauses in that protect you just in case anything happens. Get as much info on your landlords and roomies if possible. You know, when they're asking for your ID, if it's possible, try to get theirs. People that are in their circle, just in case anyone tries to pull a fast one on you, you have some information on them, because all I have is her name and her phone number and her email and her Facebook page. That's not a lot. And of course, know your rights. There are a lot of things I would have done differently, such as demanding my money back before I even left the building, or getting my parents to come in the unit and stay there, so at least there would be 3 of us and she wouldn't try to pull anything on us. I wouldn't have surrendered my keys to her before I had to. And I can already smell the comments saying, you should have did this, or you're dumb, I can't believe you fell for this, yada yada yada. But you need to understand, I was not mentally sound. I was tired, I was exhausted, I wasn't thinking straight. And again, I was prioritizing my safety over everything, and I don't really regret prioritizing my safety. I hope this video gets shared around so more people are aware of this rental scam. And again, I'm going to be posting more information about this individual on other platforms. I'm going to be posting this story on other platforms and just try to get as many people as I can aware about this situation, because I can't imagine it happening to someone else. It caused me a lot of trauma. I have so much trust issues for this, and I would hate to see somebody else go through it. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I promise this is not the usual content I make. I'm on other platforms. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, and I'm way more positive sometimes. But yeah, thanks for watching this video, and if any updates come up, I will be sure to let you guys know.